Welcome to PreciousMetalsInvesting.com. My name is Ted Sudol, and I have the pleasure of having as my guest today Paul Majenovic. Paul is the author of Precious Metals Investing for Dummies. He also has his own website, ravencapitalist.com. Welcome, Paul.
Good to be back, my friend. And we are on the final installment of the Collapse series already. And we're talking about a currency collapse. Now, currency collapse has actually been the most common type of, financial or monetary type of collapse throughout history. There's been thousands of currencies that have collapsed through the years. And actually, that's the biggest reason, or among the biggest reasons, why you're even at this site at all, at PreciousMetalsInvesting.com. Because the one currency that has never collapsed is gold and silver and even other precious metals. It's survived thousands of years. So, in other words, talking about batting average, it's a perfect batting average so far. And in today's economy, you have the historic conditions where a lot of currencies are being, greatly overproduced because you have a lot of, the central banks and the politicians of the various countries who feel that to really boost their economy, that they need to just keep on pumping up more money, printing up more of their currency and flooding the economy in various mechanisms, whether it's through banks or whatever. The thing is that whenever you overproduce a currency, keep in mind that a lot of currencies compete. People can have a dollar or the euro or many other currencies, the Swiss franc. And the point about currencies is that, look, currencies are also subject to supply and demand as well. In other words, is there market acceptance for these currencies? In recent years, because the rest of the world has been having such economic difficulties for a variety of means, you've had a situation, certainly, in recent years up until the end of 2014 and so far into early 2015, is that the dollar has been very strong because by and large, it's tied to a successful country. And even though we are printing a lot of it, we're not, printing as vociferously, so to speak, or printing it up as much as a lot of other currencies that are out there. Okay, in other words, if we were, falling off a cliff, we were the top guy instead of the bottom guy, when the collapse occurs. But in any case, we weren't doing as badly as the rest of them. The euro has been printed up tremendously because they're bailing out various member states, such as Greece, etc. And so the point about currencies is that when you print them all up, at some point, each individual unit is less valuable. Because the more and more you can print of anything, then that means of what? I mean, because currencies, they're not like, food or water or precious metals where, you have to go through a process of producing it. It takes more effort and more resources. Currencies, like the Federal Reserve or the central bank in Europe, you can print a trillion of the units at will if you wanted to. You wouldn't do it immediately because you know the impact if you overproduce. Because then you're talking about will there be market acceptance for the currencies? So for currencies, there's a few issues with this. If there's too much of it printed and it floods the economy, you do have inflation going on. Good example of this, would be in places like Venezuela, and in Russia. And there's a good example. The thing is this. Inflation, or when there's a currency, the point is that it's not that the goods and services have increased in value, or in scarcity. It's that they have less dollars. In other words, it's the value of money that's come down. So what would end up happening in places like Russia is like their currencies have been plummeting. I mean, I saw one statistic that said that gold, if it was priced in rubles, went up like 73% last year. Okay, and it's not that gold skyrocketed 72%, it's the ruble came down drastically. So when people are suspecting that a particular currency, there's some great difficulties with it and it's going to start losing value, what do people do? They flee currencies that they feel are losing value and try to put their money in other things that will retain their value, either a better currency, or things such as hard assets like precious metals and the like. And a good example of this is actually with the Swiss franc in January. The Swiss franc, for years, among currencies out there, it was actually one of the prettiest currencies. In other words, it was better managed versus all the other currencies out there. And for the longest time, the Swiss tried to tie their currency to the euro, but they removed the peg and let more of a free market with currencies arise, and the Swiss franc had skyrocketed. I mean, why be tied to an ugly duckling like the euro, all right? So the thing is this, because there's so much overabundance of the currencies, and they keep on printing it, you will definitely see, and you're already seeing to a great extent already in some parts of the world, a currency crisis occurring. Maybe one of the best ways of putting it really is that there's a confidence crisis. Because currencies are subject to confidence. If everybody, likes the dollar, and that confidence helps to give that value. It draws people to want that currency, and says demand for the currency. So in other words, again, supply and demand comes into play here as well. But if people feel that you have a mismanaged economy and you're overprinting your currency, and they feel that whatever they have valued in that currency is going to start to lose value or be impacted, or some kind of adverse consequence, then they will flee that. And when people start to reject a currency, then the value of that currency comes plummeting down. And whatever you own priced in that currency, all of a sudden you have that type of collapse, like a collapse of value, all stemming because of a lack of confidence in people fleeing that particular currency. And this is what you're going to start seeing probably more of in the coming years.
And I think you've talked about some other countries where their currency has been, in jeopardy because of overprinting and the loss of value. And some people are saying that the value of the dollar compared to what it was in 1913 is now worth 4 cents.
Exactly. And I think one thing to keep an eye out for is, in some way, shape, or form, it may not come obviously, but some type of gold standard, in some parts of the currency world. I know that, one of the biggest news of the last 5 years in the precious metals market is how China has been buying more, importing more gold and silver. And, it's not that big of a mystery that a lot of what they're trying to do is making sure they have enough reserves so that they can be able to have more strength in their currency. Although for them, they may have a better currency, but, many people are now bringing up the red flags that they're having trouble possibly with maybe debt issues, with debt collapse. That's a prior video, whatever. See, so much to think about. This is why you have to be diversified, keep your debt in place, have a diversification in terms of your portfolio, stocks, bonds, precious metals. The more self-sufficient you are in this venue, and the less you are exposed to some of the things going on out there, the better off you're going to be. Bottom line.
Well, Paul, thank you for being with us today at preciousmetalsinvesting.com. Make sure you visit Paul's website, ravencapitalist.com.